As welcome as a porcupine at a nudist colony. Welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. That, by the way, it's a reference to Daniel Ricciardo. Apparently not welcome.
It's American. It's American.
Sorry, yes, that's Texan for unwelcome. And apologies to Daniel Ricciardo. Apparently no longer welcome in Formula One. We will get to that in the news. But before we do that, Danny O'Dwyer, you are back.
Hello.
On the mic on this show. And the show is back on the air.
I can't remember. Everything's messed up. I can't remember the last time we've done this. I can't remember the last time you've done this.
Nope.
I think I was on the last one before this weird accidental break F1 gave us, but then I wasn't on like the two before that because I was circumnavigating the globe with my camera, making video game documentaries. So I watched some races in a really easy time zones because I was in Europe, and then when I was in Korea, not so much. But I'm glad to be back for the end of what might be a thrilling end to the season. Although, as you said, not so much for one honey badger.
Yes, I've just received a text message from my wife, who is from Texas. I have never heard that porcupine saying before in my life.
She can hear you in the other room.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. So, blame the internet. I'm Drew Scanlon. That's Danny O'Dwyer. Rob Zachney is on assignment this week. If you're new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. And if you are new to Formula One itself, we recommend listening to our preseason primer episode, which assumes no prior F1 knowledge and explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So if you'd like to go back and listen to that, it's episode 257. Also, this show would not be possible without our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1, where every month we release an ad-free version of this podcast, along with bonus podcasts and videos exclusively for our patrons that cover racing documentaries and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 or click the link in the show notes. What's been going on this month, Danny?
You'd have to tell me because you guys, I was away. You guys did this. Hopefully you posted it.
Well, I'm pretty sure we did. Yes, it was called The Last American Hero.
Oh, that one. Oh, I wanted to watch that. Was it good?
You should. It's actually good.
Okay.
I've been thinking about it a lot, actually, since we recorded it. Yeah, really solid movie.
What was the setup again?
It's basically your NASCAR bootlegging story.
Okay.
Bootlegging to real racing.
Right.
Based on a true story. Jeff Bridges, young Gary Busey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, good stuff.
The Buse.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
the Buse
amazing.
is loose.
Yeah, and this caboose. That sounds good. Well, that's added to the pile of amazing video game, Formula One. See, I've just forgotten a podcast. Which one's this again? Yeah. Movies we've covered over on our Patreon. Massive shout out to all of our incredible title sponsors, all of whom are still here. Whenever we have a break, I'm always like, Abdullah Al-Thani's got to be tapping out now at this stage, Bailey's had enough. But no, here they all are. It's me, Ferrario, Get Rich or Die Ryan, Agave ATX, Cyphus Training, Turf SES, at Team Blackjack, Michael Maves, Gordy's Army, at Talking Autos, Olivia Evans, TelemetryDeck.com, FTC, Drew Stewart, Bailey Foot, Abdullah Al-Thani, Jason Chadwick, Abraham Getchell, The Space Above Us podcast, Buddy Fiend, Snigs, Alex Goucher, Max Faltar, Circuit Demon, Troy Stammer, William Rumpf, Irvine Clinical Research, Lachlan the Maddened Man, Samurai Love Story, and of course, Jason Kelly. Thank you all so much for your outstanding support of this podcast. We are into the what do we call these? The winter months, literally, I guess, in many ways. The last chapter
of the Formula One season.
Exactly. We've got some news to catch up on, some of which is not particularly news.
That's true, Danny. A couple news stories here that we had rumors of previous episodes, now confirmed. Yes. We did just want to touch on them, though, as alluded to at the top of the show. Danny, you're our Danny correspondent.
I am. Yep. Yeah, I got any Danny related news, I have to jump in here. And unfortunately, we've lost another brother. Daniel Ricciardo is no longer in Formula One for probably the last. I mean, if he manages to come back from this, he is some sort of F1 vampire who cannot be murdered. But no, Ricciardo lost his seat. He's out. And Liam Lawson is in for this season. So I'll start off with a quote here from Laura Mekis, who says, everyone here at VCarb, still can't believe we have to call that team VCarb, would like to thank Daniel for his hard work across the last 2 seasons with us. He has brought us a lot of experience and talent to the team with a fantastic attitude, which has helped everyone to develop and foster a right team spirit. Daniel has become a true gentleman both on and off the track, and never without that smile. He will be missed, but will always hold a special place within the Red Bull family. And I think that sort of sums up the problem that Ricciardo had for the past 2 years, and sort of what he had ever since he left Red Bull, which is that he had so much goodwill, like an aggressive amount of goodwill. People loved him. I think he was good for the teams, for marketing, all that side of the sport. There's just a genuine love of the guy as well. He's got that sort of Labrador energy. He's very optimistic, and even when he's down, he doesn't take it out on anyone else. Like he's not a driver that really complained about other drivers all that much. He'd always put it on his shoulders, and perhaps that's part of the problem. I don't know. He never was able to reach the peaks that he had at Red Bull. Well, we'll talk about that in a little minute. Horner sort of put some stuff out there which seems to suggest that was the case. Ultimately, what had him lose his seat at VCarb. But yeah, it's a sad one. I don't think anyone can complain that it's too early or anything like that. The writing has kind of been on the wall for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of went over this a lot in the previous episode when we talked about Singapore maybe being his last race. Yeah, I feel like it's a tough one to argue with, but we really have some pretty direct behind the scenes info here from Red Bull team principal Christian Horner.
Yeah, Autosport reported this. It's a fantastic article. It'll be in the show notes. Worth a listen. But I took a chunk of it out of here. Yeah, in interviewing Christian Horner, he came out with some interesting tidbits about Ricciardo's sort of how he was doing within the team, especially with regards to a certain individual at VCarb. Horner said he started the season roughly, and then Miami was a weekend of 2 halves, said Horner. The Friday and Saturday morning were fantastic, and it looked like the Daniel of old defending against the Ferraris and outdriving the car. But then the Saturday afternoon and the Sunday were disastrous. So even around Barcelona, Helmut wanted him out of the car, and there was already a lot of pressure on him there. By the time we get to Montreal, it was actually dear old Jacques Villeneuve who got him properly wound up by giving him a hard time, and it definitely fired him up because the way he drove the car that weekend, he grabbed it by the scruff of the neck and put it together at a very strong weekend. We reported on that when it happened, but he was basically was it on Sky, I think it was, on the pre-week telecast earlier on, and he was basically castigating Ricciardo's form. And then Horner continues, so I did say to Ricciardo, give Jacques a call every time, every Grand Prix for the rest of the year, because whatever he did, it definitely worked. Horner said Ricciardo's fate was effectively sealed by him not hitting the peaks of form that his bosses wanted from him to show he deserved a return to the Red Bull squad. So that's kind of what it is I think it wasn't so much the valleys, because in that car, you're going to have bad races. It's in such a position in the field that if a certain track doesn't fit the car, or you have an incident or whatever it is, right, you'll have a bad weekend every here and there. I think the problem that Daniel had with his most recent stint there, and also kind of just in general since leaving Red Bull, is that he never got back to the peaks. That his ceiling dropped, and everyone talked about his ceiling and how good he could be and waited to get him back there. And it just kind of never happened. And ultimately, him being in that V-carb, we sort of thought about it at the start, that this was more than likely not, like, they didn't get him in that car to get him in that car. They got him in that car to see if perhaps he'd be able to take the transition back up to the main Red Bull team. And
which Horner also confirmed in that article was the plan. But if he were able to, show them that he could do it, and he just failed to.
Yeah. It was, of course, last year when he hurt his arm in Zandvoort that Liam Lawson got the nod and drove 5 races last year. Zandvoort and then 4 others before Ricciardo's wrist injury came back. We don't know if the wrist injury had anything to do with that ceiling. Who knows? But it will be Liam Lawson who's driving for the rest of this year. They have not confirmed who's going to be in the seat for 2025. But Lawson, if you don't remember much about him, he's a young guy, he's 22, Kiwis from New Zealand, came 3rd in the F2 championship in 2022 with Carlin. And he did well in the Red Bull. He drove consistently. Well, sorry, not in the V-carb. What were they calling it last year? What was it?
Was it still AlphaTauri?
Was that still AlphaTauri? I don't know if it was. Who knows? Whatever it was. Baby Red Bull diet. He didn't, impress crazily, but he definitely was consistent over those 5 races. He will be starting this race with a grid penalty, though. He, adopts the engines that Ricciardo used, and they are replacing one. So probably better off, actually, in a way. He goes into this race, no pressure. Yeah, and I mean he's in the car for the rest of the season anyway. There's not that many races left, so no pressure in any way. But I mean, a lot of pressure because it's Red Bull, and clearly some drivers they give a lot of rope to, and some not much at all. So, or I guess a leash. A rope would be the opposite. A leash.
Sure. Well, speaking of pressure and engines, another confirmation here of a rumored story. Renault ending their F1 engine program, and they will be going with a Mercedes engine, the Alpine team, in 2026. So,
crazy.
Not a lot that we haven't already said here. It is kind of crazy. Alpine, the racing brand of Renault, the partially owned by the French government, car company.
The rebranding,
no longer making the engines what go in their cars.
And the rebranding now, for me, makes sense. Which is, if you were going to rip the Renault engine out of the car, you should rename the team first, maybe. So who knows if that had anything to do with it. We obviously understand that, with V-carb and lots of other Sauber and Kick, the naming of F1 teams has never been particularly about logic or anything. But yeah, it's a real shame to see this happen. It's obviously going to affect people at the at the plant as well.
Yes, and they are not happy about it.
No, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. But in more car manufacturer news,
right?
This one we hadn't yet talked about. This story from earlier about a week ago. Haas and Toyota are teaming up. Now, longtime Formula One fans may recall that Toyota had a Formula One team. They were not very good. That is not what this is. This is more of a technical partnership. So there's another Autosport article here that I will also link to because it spells out in exhaustive detail how this is going to work. It is basically, they go to great pains. Ayo Kamatsu, the team principal of Haas, says that they did to not upset their existing partnership. So they get their power unit from Ferrari along with their gearbox and things of that nature. They didn't want to upset the apple cart there. So they said, listen, we're still good. Don't worry about that. We're going to go to Toyota for other parts. So it's really more of a refocusing less on, I never remember how to pronounce it. Pronounce this name of this company. Is it Dallara? or Dallara.
I'm gonna
I
let
think
you take
it's
the hit on that one.
I think it's Dallara. They're an Italian company that has basically made every Haas F1 car, with the exception again of the power unit from Ferrari. So Haas, basically the way that it's going to work is that by being sort of a sponsor, not the main sponsor, MoneyGram is still sticking around as well. Toyota will, the money for these parts, the Toyota parts, will effectively come out of their sponsorship budget. So they're not paying, the same as they would be paying for Dallara to make their parts. Toyota, for their part, their engineers will be able to like stand behind Haas and like learn a lot of stuff about Formula One.
Yeah, F1 specific engineering, which is not something that like is the only way to learn it, is to be embedded in teams. So yeah, it's not like you can just send them off to university for that one.
Right. So it sounds like they're not necessarily like hiring a whole bunch of Toyota people, but they will allow them to, learn the ropes in F1 and driver sharing as well. So
yes.
Toyota drivers will be able to not necessarily drive in like the F1 practice sessions that a lot of the rookies get to do, but there's a program where as long as you drive an F1 car that is a few years older, I think it's at least 2 years outside, or 2 years old, you are no longer limited by FIA limitations. And so Toyota will get to put some of their drivers in there as well. So there's a lot of other minutia here, but generally it's a technical sharing, a cheaper way for Haas to get parts.
Yeah.
It probably means good things all around for Haas.
Yeah, the Autosport article is very interesting because it is about the minutiae, and it's about of like a lot of, I'd say, creative bookkeeping makes it sound like it's illegal or anything like that. It's obviously not. It's a fairly regulated sport, but it does seem like it's a sort of a quid pro quo that works out for everyone. Like Toyota are going to be able to build them their first simulator, like a proper dedicated simulator. That's going to be something that they'll be able to spin up and essentially eat the cost on, instead of it being something that Haas have to find within their budget.
Instead of just using a Logitech.
I know, yeah. Like just, come on, just get your race seat and there was one of those,
2002.
I was in Dublin and we were in a museum a couple of weeks ago for like kids museum, which just is like, here's a place to go have some fun. And one of them was, they had it was like a 90s style F1 car on like all those, the ones that go up and down.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it does all like the actuators. Have you seen those ones that people have in their houses though?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's hardcore. I'd just be terrified it would like crush one of my cats. That's the I already have to like make sure no one's in the room before I put like a VR headset on in case I fucking punt one of them across the room by accident. But yeah, it's an interesting situation. I don't know if this, presumably, I mean, Komatsu has talked a lot about how this has come across from him having conversations with people. So maybe this is a good example of why he's in charge as well, is that he has that connection with Toyota. But or maybe it's just like really a smart way of running a company that he was able to figure out, that was also not something that was part of Gunter's style. Like I feel like Gunter was more of a driver and track guy than a business partnership, Aldi furniture guy. It's hard to tell, but yeah, it's smart, and maybe Poises has to be in a position where their developmental window for the next couple of years is pretty positive. We'll have to wait and see. Hülkenberg certainly seems to think so. So yeah, time will tell.
Indeed. A couple of quick hits here. Again, following up on a story we had reported earlier. F1 flirting with the idea of hosting a rookie race after the end of the season.
It's like the opposite of the Pro Bowl.
Right. Yes. Because, after the F1 season is done, rookies traditionally have gotten in the cars and done some practice sessions. But hey, what if we had them race was one of the ideas. Because, going around a track just for time is different than when there's everyone else around you racing in anger.
Yeah. Not going to use these cars next year, probably. Probably go.
Yeah, sure. Bang them up.
Yeah.
That has now been pushed to 2025, so don't expect that for the end of this year. And then one more quick hit from you, Danny.
Oh yeah, the most important. I have two more actually.
I can't believe this.
This is one of them is an actual piece of news, and then this one's just really important. We are back on Massa watch. Nina, Massa watch. Did Massa, Crashgate? We just had Singapore. Crashgate's on everyone's mind. That season, that
Flavio Briatore's back in the biz.
Flavio's back, exactly. Why not? Why not give Massa that title? This goes back to, of course, the news story we've tackled a little bit over the past couple of weeks, mostly for Japes, because it's just absolutely ridiculous, which is the idea that Felipe Massa would be handed the 2008 Drivers' World Championship, the one that he lost on the final turn at Interlagos because Timo Glock ran out of fuel or something, or ran out of tires, and Hamilton managed to get fifth position, much to the delight of Nicole Scherzinger. This all came, of course, from the crash that happened at Singapore, Crashgate, where somebody intentionally crashed we can't speak his name, crashed so that Voldemort crashed so that Alonso would hopefully win out the race, and it would end in a safety car. Of course, this is all ridiculous and has a sort of butterfly effect logic that if that hadn't happened, then Massa would have had enough points to win.
Let me see if I could do this. Okay. So Nelson Piquet Jr. crashed his car so that Massa won. Or I'm sorry, so that Alonso won the race.
Yes, safety car.
Massa is contending that Eccleston and the head of the FIA, what is his name? Mosley? Knew that he had crashed intentionally. And therefore, they should have nullified the points.
Yes, because Eccleston recently said as much in an interview, which he has now said he doesn't remember.
Right.
Which makes this next quote the funniest thing that's happened since.
Please.
According to Massa, for sure we are fighting because of something that wasn't fair, because of what happened, Massa said. This is from racefans.net. What I'm definitely looking for is to be recognized. Recognized as a champion because I deserve it. It wasn't fair what happened to me because of something that happened in the race that is not part of the sport. That's why I'm fighting. And I'm definitely fighting to the end. Asked if he has spoken to Eccleston about the challenge, Massa said, yes. He said I was right to go to court. So apparently, Eccleston supports Massa's legal challenge, which is against Eccleston, I believe. So yeah, Bernie's got enough money. He's like, hey, I guess he doesn't. It's against the it's against F1, I guess. But
does Bernie know what's going on?
He's lived a long life. He's taken a lot of adrenochrome. He's in his winter years, his autumn years as well. He's not. He's in his overtime years. Everything about this just keeps getting weirder because now the language is coming out of Massa in particular, not just his counsel, because that's what we were reading before, and it's him saying I deserve to be a champion, which is such a stretch. It's so
right, which wasn't originally part of it. He was like, listen, I know that I'm not going to be champion. Come
exactly.
on, but give me some money or something.
Maybe this is why you have
now
to
he's
say.
like, no, rewrite history.
No, exactly, 100%.
If you had nullified those points, Hamilton, I would be champion. Based on points, not Hamilton. I don't think you can do that. You're right.
Lewis has enough championships. He doesn't. Sevens too, man. Come on. Just one. Maybe we can rewind time and that awful footage of my father and I think it was the engineer or the brother hugging each other because they thought he'd won the championship in his home country. It's real. I still feel bad about that. It's brutal. And the only reason I feel okay about it was the same thing. Well, not the same thing, but Hamilton lost his championship in Interlagos the previous year. So at least when Hamilton won, it was bittersweet, but at least it was some sweet. And it was a good fight. But yeah, this is just silly. So anyway, keep your ears to the ground for more amazing Massa teaming up with Eccleston in his battle against Formula One, and also Bernie Eccleston.
All right, well, Danny, I'm going to stop you before you get to this next one because we're going to go to an ad break, and then we will be back with this news story and the track walk. And we're back with this news story ahead of the track walk because it's basically about the track.
It is about the track, yeah. So you might remember there's been some brouhaha about track limits. I mean, when has there not been some brouhaha about track limits? Austin's one of those ones where it comes up a bit more than other places. And the reason is that it has ample runoff. It is a new track, newish track. It's a Tilcadrome. There's a couple of tracks have this problem. Is it a problem? Kind of a problem. Paul Ricard's another one. Basically any track where you go off and there's no penalty.
Singapore.
Turn yeah, one. You're right, I guess. Yeah, there's some spots, right? It's a street circuit, but yeah. And the issue is that gravel for the longest time was used to stop drivers from, hedging their bets a bit around turns and breaking track limits. The problem with gravel is that it beats too many cars. So if you just had a genuine lockup and you went off or you couldn't make the turn, if you weren't even turning, like you went straight, then you were basically out of the race. And then more often than not, if the car was beached, it created a safety car, virtual safety car at the least in the modern age.
Yeah, or if you are a track promoter trying to sell track time to rich people,
yes, that's the.
They also get stuck in the gravel, and that's a big pain.
Yes, that's another part of it for sure. And COTA is one of those tracks. It's a track where it's also a track like they tend to treat it differently when MotoGP or bikes are going to be there as well. Yeah. There's all of these different reasons, right? And so gravel has sort of fallen out of favor in the past. Past couple of decades, let's say.
But it's not, that's not the silver bullet every time.
No, and we see it all the time with different types of curbs. Like we've more recent years, them increasing the size of the curbs. That's become problematic with the ground effect era cars that are sucking the ground a little bit more, and it's causing floor damage. So it's always this dance, right? This is always part of it. To try and combat some of the more egregious turns at Circuit of the Americas at COTA, Autosport have found out, presumably from someone reconning the track, that they have added fake gravel is what they're calling it, which I don't know what fake gravel is. If it's not gravel, it's fake. So what is it? I don't know. Well, I guess
so. It sounds like basically like a sticky fly trap with gravel on it.
Yeah, like it's not loose. You won't get stuck in it, we don't think, but it's gonna make it,
or it's not
annoying.
Deep,
or it's not.
Yeah, you'll lose traction, but you won't get stuck.
According to Autosport, at several areas of the track, the asphalt verges have been narrowed by 1.5 meters and replaced with turf, which should stop drivers being tempted to fully run across them. These are on the inside of turns 6, 13, 14, and 15. To help the policing of potential track limits, Austin has also said that they have added cameras in strategic places that could help better monitor any cars that are deemed to be running off the track. So that's the other part of this. There was that incident where Haas were retroactively asking them to basically punish drivers for doing this, and I feel like there's a post-race reticence to try and then slap people on the wrist for track limits in particular. Mm-hmm. So I think this is part of the logic here. Going back to that Autosport article, a change has also been made at the exit of turn 11, the tight left-hander on the back straight. This had previously been an asphalt runoff area with turtle bumps on the exit, but it has now been fitted with resin-bound gravel inserted there. So that's what we're talking about with the fake asphalt, a resin-bound gravel, which, as you said, does sound like they just got a bit of PVA glue and then, like a child's sort of art project and then put like dirt on it. That's what I'm imagining. But also yeah, that turn in particular, that there's a long back straight, and then they have that. It's like slightly downhill, and then as you're entering the little stadium section there's a tight left-hander. People are always going wide there because you can dive down the inside to get the position. If you get pushed out wide, you just go okay, and you just pedal to the metal, take the corner, go off on the asphalt, and then you come in, and the next turn is like a very sharp right-hander. So as long as you keep your nose ahead, you basically stop them from getting the position. So that is, to me, that's a really smart place to put it. This fake gravel was pioneered at Zandvoort several years ago to act as a deterrent for drivers, but not risk loose stones being brought back onto the track, which obviously also
concern.
Yeah, exactly. Virtual safety cars happen because of debris quite a lot. So yeah, we'll see how that works. I think policing the turns is we'll see it in practice. We'll see in practice if they start to let people know that like lap times are getting deleted, then we'll see it in qualification, and then we'll see it in the race. But that always ends up being the way of things, is that they establish some sort of precedence in the earlier days in the weekend. But yeah, I do think it's a genuine problem at COTA. So and it kind of always has. They put up a which one was it? It was one of the Hamilton Rosberg years. They put it up on the F1 YouTube channel, like the extended highlights of that one. And at the start of that race, Hamilton, up at the top of the hill, basically pushed Rosberg out immediately over track limit, over the edge of it there. It was 2015. So, yeah, it's a funny one. Some drivers use it to their advantage, the other way around as well. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
We sure will, Danny. And you just mentioned a whole bunch of turns and stuff. Do you want to talk about the track itself?
Sure. COTA, 56 laps, 5.51 kilometers, about 3.41 miles average length. And it borrows a lot from a bunch of other tracks too. It was first unveiled in 2012. Feels like we've been here a long time now, but it's just been over 10 years. Another Herman Tilke designed track. Used to be referred to as a Franken track of sorts, mostly because of the S-curves between turn 6 and 3, which somewhat resemble Maggots and Beckett's from Silverstone, but maybe aren't as, they're not as swooping, not as wide. The S-curves in Suzuka is perhaps more of a proxy. And then similarly, that stadium section that we alluded to earlier, turn 12 at the back straight, that into that whole little stadium section, which is where we sat actually when we went there.
That's right.
A number of years ago.
Great place to see a race.
Very cool. That's kind of a lot like the stadium in Hockenheim, which we don't actually race in anymore. Good track. There's kind of not a bad seat in the house here. Like it's a very well designed track that's got lots of interesting swoops and topographical change. Of course, the ridiculous hill climb up to turn 1 is always very interesting as well. Just the amount of grip that the cars have going up there, and they can throw themselves into that almost a chicane. Like the track almost starts with a chicane. It's counterclockwise too, so it's got a lot of interesting things going for it. So we had 2 DRS zones in it, for the main straight and then that big back straight we were referring to before. I think they've changed the detection point. It used to be right before turn 11. People would take advantage of it by basically throwing their car into the inside of that turn. I think it's been moved up a little bit up the hill. I think that happened maybe a couple of years ago. And if you go to this one, there's not a bad seat in the house really. GA tickets have got some great spots as well. The only problem is it's hot. It's Austin. It's outside of Austin. Got to take a bus or drive your car out there, and there's Texas heat. Even this time of year, it gets pretty hot there, and cold in the nighttime for sure, but like if you don't like the sun, like my Irish skin, it's definitely one to slap on a bunch of Factor 50 before you head out to it. But yeah, it's a fun track. The races there, I think, have often been good. I think it has a high floor for quality. I'm not sure if we've had any absolute classics here. I think it comes out in the wash, but a part of that as well is I don't think we often get safety cars here because of the we've had a bunch of crashes, but turn one incidents happen here a little bit, but it's because of all the runoff. They seem to generally clean them up, even pretty meaty ones. Like we've had some Alonso crashed at high speed on the back straight once as well. And then I know before the break I was doing like, here are some interesting things that happened here in the past, and I did a bunch of research, and there's some good battles. Like Alonso and Vettel had a couple of great fights here, and there was a championship decider in 2015 as well, between the two Mercedes drivers. But there's no real classic incidents that happened here. I will say the fanfare around the race is often good fun. Like Ricciardo with R.I.P. Ricciardo with the cowboy hats and his crazy handlebar mustaches, and I when this happened, it had been the first F1 since I think it was Indianapolis in 2007 or something, and American races have been spotty and had a lot of embarrassing ones, like the one in the car park in Vegas and the one where only 6 cars started. So I think it was sort of a really big coming out party for US F1 fans, and obviously now we have other F1 races in the United States. We have 3 of them now. So for those early years, it was definitely like super American. Feels like it's a little bit less so now, just because we have Miami and Vegas. But I think I still think it ends up being an interesting one when it comes to who's there and who's who and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I like COTA. It's a fun track, and hopefully we'll get a decent race out of it.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the weather certainly is not conspiring against that, I would say, or maybe it is, depending on your persuasion. Precipitation
Snowing.
is low.
Oh, right.
A high of 7% on Saturday, so not a lot. Warm temps looks like we've got. This is a sprint weekend, so we've got the sprint at 1 p.m. local on what is that? Is that Saturday? Yes, right? Because we're doing. I just looked up the schedule here. Yes, the Saturday is sprint at 1 p.m. local, and then qualifying for the race at 5 p.m. local. So that's looks like we're going to be high 70s or low 80s, 58% humidity.
Oh boy.
And up to maybe even 12 miles an hour, 19 kilometers an hour wind, and basically the same temps. That's like 23 to 29 Celsius. So same days or same conditions, qualifying and race day. Heading into the Austin Grand Prix round, Max Verstappen is on top with 331 points in the driver standings. Lando Norris is in second place. Boy, I've completely forgotten all the storylines here. He's in second. Norris is with 279. Charles Leclerc is in third with 245. Oscar Piastri in fourth with 237. Carlos Sainz is in fifth place with 190. Then we've got Hamilton with 174. Russell with 155. Perez with 144. Alonso with 62, and then down in 10th place, we've got a tie between Nico Hülkenberg and Lance Stroll with 24 points. Tsunoda has 22. Albon and Ricciardo tied with 12 points. Pierre Gasly's in 15th place with 8 points. We've got Oliver Behrman with 7. Magnussen with 6. Ocon with 5. Franco Colapinto with 4. Zhou Guanyu, Logan Sargent, and Valtteri Bottas with 0. 22 driver names on this driver standing. So it's more than I can remember ever having.
Yeah, a lot. And 24 races this year. Quick refresher for everyone. We are in the final quarter. There are 6 races left. We have US Grand Prix, then Mexico, then Interlagos, then Vegas, then Qatar, and then Abu Dhabi. So that's the state of play. It's a bunch of America and then the Middle East for the last 2.
Yeah.
Bunch of the Americas.
Triple header here, Danny.
Yeah.
I hope you rested up because we're jumping right back into it.
Feast and the famine. Yep.
The constructor standings are pretty interesting. On top is McLaren with 516. Red Bull Racing is in second with 475.
That's a gap.
It is. Ferrari's in third with 441. Mercedes in fourth with 329. Then a jump down to Aston Martin in fifth with 86 points. RB is in sixth with 34. Gene Haas and team in seventh with 31 points. Williams is in eighth with 16 points. Alpine's in ninth with 13. And Sauber has 0. If you'd like to join the standings yourself, you can join our official Shift+F1 Fantasy League using the link in the show notes. And you can send us an email, shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. You can send an email like one of these fine emails that we are going to read right now. I'm going to kick this one off from Joe.
Okay.
Subject: Zach Brown is CEO of McLaren because of Wheel of Fortune.
This is great.
The body of this email says, not a question, but something I just found out. Apologies if you guys have covered it. Zach Brown was on a Wheel of Fortune as a teenager. He won $3,000. He bought a go-kart and started racing. I just found this out and don't know what to do with this information. Been listening since Alt F1. Love you guys. Keep up the amazing work. Joe then links to a Jalopnik article, which has a great write-up of this and a YouTube clip of Zach on the show. Zat and Pat Sajak yucking it up.
It's wild. It's like if you told me like AI made this up, I'd be like, I guess. It's too ridiculous a thing. It's too ridiculous a thing that we only just found out about. It's not like Zach Brown is like a new name in the world of F1. He's always been a character. It's wild. He's like 13 years old. He's
credit to
there's a F1, the Red Flags. I think it's called.
Another F1 podcast.
Yeah, Red Flags.
Yes.
They're experts on
who dug this up.
Zach Brown and American game shows.
I will put a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, it's
great. Speaking of the butterfly effect,
well, that's
Pat
the thing.
Sajak is to thank for the top of this constructor standings right now.
Apparently, it was Teen Week in 1984, so that's why they had a 13-year-old Zach Brown on Wheel of Fortune, and that's the thing. See, here's the thing. That's what it is. It's now. This is the mythology of Zach Brown, is that he's not some like upper class, rich boy who swung into F1 into racing, because of course Zach Brown had a racing career before McLaren, and I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know how I don't know if his parents were lawyers, or you know what I mean. Like, I don't know exactly. Did he go on Wheel of Fortune and then get $3,050 and then go to the local shop and get a go-kart and then take it out that day, and then was that that seems a little
all because
bit too,
he knows letters.
Yeah, it's a little convenient, I think.
The thing is, it's funny because you can tell if you've watched enough like footage of Zach Brown, you can see it in this kid. It's really funny.
It doesn't look like him.
It doesn't look like him, but he does have some mannerisms.
Yes.
And he's also very like charismatic and slick. Like the fact that he's on TV does not faze this 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's cool. You should check it out. It's very like alternate reality. People have got to ask him about it, I'm sure, over the weekend. Also, it has to come up.
Just every clip of 80s television is just so good. Thank you, Joe. Danny, you want to take this next one?
Sure. Gents, this one's from Doug. Gents, as I sit here waiting for my civic duty of jury selection, I saw the following article of Sauber's yearly name change. Despite the history of issues at Sauber, stake being banned during a few races, and Audi,
which I don't know that we talked about.
Yeah, did we? It's because of betting and stuff, is it?
And crypto, maybe.
Okay,
like they became just Kick Sauber.
Is it Oh yeah, the stake. I think that was the idea. Was that they knew this? We talked about this at the start of the season, that there were some races where it was going to be Kick and some where it was going to be stake. And it was because of this, I think. Okay. They must be cigarettes as well. Something like that.
Yeah.
The classic reason why you have to change your sponsor's name. Despite stake being banned during a few races and Audi inheriting this mess, I would like to nominate the 2025 name that would help reflect Audi Sauber Steak, which is, I guess, it italicizes as ass, or not italicizes. It what's the other one? What do you say?
Acronym.
Acronym.
It's not an initialism. It's an acronym.
Not. It's an acronym, not an initialism. Sorry. Italicizes. It's not even in the same ballpark. This would help prevent any confusion for the casual fan and help with the new transition with ass plastered on the car, promotional, etc. Keep up the good work, Doug. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I agree. I think that's what we stretched for. Like he's taking the piss. But how did VCarb turn up? VCarb came up because of this exact reason. Is that like,
and they are at the end of the standings.
That's true. The ass end. What's it? Well, yeah. We got to sit on it. Ass. Audi Sauber Steak. Ass. And then when it's kick, it's ask. So it works.
I mean, kick also works with that, you know.
Kick ass.
Right.
Kick ass. You're right. Yeah.
Kick Audi Sauber Steak.
Yep. Kick ass.
Thanks, Doug. That made me laugh.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether
is that a real
this
name? Is that a real name?
is real.
It's great. I hope it is.
This one comes in from Hibbity Bibbard, who says, while I would never truly, while I would never, why can't I say this? Take 3. While I would truly never want to force you guys to invest the hours required, I would love you to experience this amazing golden era in sports car racing. I have put WEC or WEC and IMSA or IMSA races on the TV all season, not unlike a Yule log. And the action, storylines, and silly bits hooked my wife.
Oh.
After a trip to the IMSA race at Indy, she now owns her own cherished AO Racing Rexy hat, has opinions on the Iron Dames moving from Porsche to Lamborghini, and is on the constant lookout for Gabe Newell during any shots of the Heart of Racing Aston Martin crew. I forgot he owned that team. Incredible. Get no clip on the case.
I'm gonna, as an insider on the location of Gabe Newell, I'm gonna say he's not gonna turn up at any of those races. You can bet your bottom dollar.
Firmly seated in parts unknown.
Yes.
If nothing else, it's great to watch the Phoenix, Ferdinand, Zvonimir, Maria, Balthus, Keith, Michael, Otto, Antal, Bonham, Leonard, Ferdy, Habsburg, Lothingen.
Yes, absolutely.
Mickey Schumacher, and every Formula E driver you can name from memory battling on track.
That's where they go.
Commentary crews on WEC and IMSA are fantastic, if a bit nutty in their own ways, and the WEC social team is extremely slick. The next couple seasons in sports cars might just be some of the best in ages, so I'd hate for you guys to possibly miss the boat. Thank you, Hibbity Bibbard. Hibbity Bibbard?
It's a shame Rob's not here. I feel like he's the authority on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I drift into IMSA a little bit here and there on the indie weekends, but
there's a lot of it out there for free.
There is, and it just goes to show that like the racing is all that matters. If the racing is good, like it's like MotoGP had a number of incredible seasons there, the earlier Oriol Lorenzo years, and like it doesn't matter. Like people will go to it, and everything else flows from there. And to a certain degree, F1. There are some years where F1 feels like it doesn't deserve its audience, right? Because like the racing, the competition is not as good. But then that happen, you know, that's all swings and roundabouts. That happens here in IMSA as well. So, I wish I knew the easiest way to get in, aside from, like he said, just basically putting
I love
aside
the U-Log thing.
Just
put it on the TV.
Like a streamer, just have it on your second monitor all day.
Yeah. I mean, if, as an employee of Twitch.tv,
there you go.
They should really just have a channel where this is going all the time. Old races, you know?
Shift+F1 Infinite.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's
nonstop
work out a licensing deal, IMSA. Let's do it.
And you know, just every other racing series. I'm sure it won't be that hard, you know?
Yeah. Danny, you want to take this next one?
Sure. This one comes in from Joseph Flint. Hey, Shift+F1. I recently came across a cartoon I had forgotten from when I was growing up called NASCAR Racers. It's an officially licensed NASCAR cartoon set in the future, where NASCAR has turned into something halfway between Mario Kart and Hot Wheels. Here's a version of the intro that somebody has restored so you can get a rough idea of what I'm talking about. Link in the show notes. I'm going to watch this quick. Have you watched this yet?
Yes.
This intro?
Yeah.
I'm going to watch this intro just as it's happening. Oh my God. It's like half 2D, half 3D.
It is. And the 2D looks straight out of Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh, it does. That looks
from
like
the 90s, even though I don't think this was made in the 90s.
No, it looks like Captain Planet, the 2D stuff.
Yeah.
And then the 3D stuff looks like kind of bad, but in like a, but in like a kind of a halfway acceptable way. Look at that. NASCAR Racers. And look, one's in purple, one's in red, one's in blue, one's in green. So they know what they're doing. Wow. The email continues. There are a couple episodes available on YouTube, but the resourceful can find the entire 26 episode run of the series around the internet. The main thing to keep in mind when watching that NASCAR officially signed off on all of it. Okay, now I'm interested in what happened. And thank you for being the most down-to-earth and accessible F1 podcast around. Keep being awesome. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Joseph.
That's now we found our next Patreon exclusive podcast. Let's watch all 26 episodes of NASCAR Racers. I can't believe that exists. I was talking to someone recently about F1 Race Stars. That Formula One, Mario Kart Formula One game that had, Michael Schumacher's in that game.
I think we brought it up on the show recently.
I think we must have. It's cool. It's got like, you're driving in Monza, but it's like,
solid game.
Roman columns. It has like Curva Grandes in it, but also, some crazy old Roman stuff. It's a great, it's like an amazing game that in 20 years time or 10 years time when people go, oh, did you know they made like a Mario Kart style F1 game in that era? Joseph Flint will be emailing. Joseph Flint's son or Hibbity Bibbard's daughter will be emailing in telling us about F1 Race Stars. NASCAR Racers, check it out, folks. Available now on the internet.
On the Shift+F1 torrent tracker.
Exactly, yeah. Sign up to our Discord. Go into the channel named #downloads with a Z and check it out. We need cedars, don't just leech.
All right. Well, you can find us there as well as on the socials using the link in the show notes. And you can, of course, send us them emails at shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. That is us around the internet. Before we get to that, Danny, you've just held up the F1 Nomicon. Do you want to take us around the world?
I do. Let's race around the world. Yeah.
Danny, we're kicking things off with the World Rally Championship.
Ooh.
The Central Europe Rally is this weekend.
Wow,
starting in...
Can I guess where the center of Europe is?
Sure.
So I'm going to say Hungary.
Wheel of Fortune music. We're starting in Bad Griesbach.
That sounds like Germany.
It sure is. It's in Bad Griesbach, Germany. MotoGP is in Phillip Island for the Phillip Island Sprint and Grand Prix.
Good luck to Phillip.
Lucky getting in a whole island. It's in Australia.
Is it Prince Philip? Probably.
Probably. The World Superbike Championship is at the Circuito de Jerez for their Spain weekend. We have DTM. They're also in Germany at Baden-Württemberg.
Oh my God, my Lord.
Very much badness going on in Germany this weekend. NASCAR Xfinity Series is at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the Am Better Health.
Oh, I love that Am Better.
302.
Am Better. Are you feeling worse? Are you feeling Am Better? I am better.
I am better. Between that
gosh.
and Audi Sauber Steak,
I know. I missed you, Drew.
Sillies got me. I know. Super GT is racing at Autopolis.
Oh, God, we love it. We love Autopolis.
Francis Ford Coppola's Autopolis.
Oh, man. Can't wait to check that out.
Showing this weekend in Kamitsue Village in Hita City, Oita Prefecture.
Very good.
And we got NASCAR.
We're in Vegas,
Also
aren't we? Are we feeling better?
I hope you're better for the South Point 400.
South Point. Not as good as I'm better.
Not as interesting.
Anticlimactic.
And Formula One this weekend, a sprint weekend, everyone. Friday, October 18th, kicks off with free practice 1 at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2, followed by sprint qualifying on that Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, also on ESPN2. Then Saturday, October 19th, the sprint is at 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN News, followed by qualifying at 6 p.m. Eastern, also on ESPN News. But the race, everyone, the real one, Sunday, October 20th, 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Over
Easy
the air.
1, 2, 3.
That's right.
Yeehaw.
Get your rabbit ears ready. But that's what's going on this weekend around the world and in Tejas. But what happened, Danny, this day in Antiquity?
In days of yore. I was at the Renaissance Festival in Gilroy this past weekend.
How was it?
Camped out at it as well. It was
Wow.
It was good fun, yeah.
Did it smell of garlic?
Not as bad as usual. Gilroy, for those who don't know, who aren't Northern California natives or transplants, is big old garlic country. You can literally smell it on the highway. You can smell that garlic. We have a mutual friend whose wife is allergic to garlic, and they have to close the windows and circulate the air because she comes up in hives. That's how garlicky it is in Gilroy.
Wow.
Pretty hardcore crowd at the Ren Fair. They were like no joke. It was like 90% people in costumes. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
Everyone's in a costume.
That's more than like PAX.
Yeah, it was crazy. I've been to the Maryland Ren Fair, which is a pretty awesome one. It's like 50-50 maybe. This was like super, super hardcore.
So you go to a lot of Ren Fairs?
No, I've been to 2.
Okay, all right. It's more than me. I have a stereotypical picture of what goes on at a Ren Fair.
It's probably accurate. Yeah, you just turn up. It's like, so in this one, you can rent costumes at most of them, and I rented one. I was on the way there. I was saying to my daughter, "Thank you." That would have been. I'm not gregarious enough. I'll tell you, and you can tell me if you think this fit. On the way there,
Franciscan monk.
Oh, you nailed it. You nailed it.
Is
literally.
that right?
Yes. A monk, basically a brown shawl, like a monk's cowl, or whatever you call it, and a cross, a crucifix made of wood. That was it.
Incredible. Did you shave the back of your head? I
should have. That would have been great. Go full Friar Tuck.
Yeah.
No, but I was walking around. I walked out of the tent, and I had I put on like an English accent, and then it took me like a minute, and I was like, wait, my regular accent works.
Yeah.
I've come preloaded with the drunken priest energy.
I could just picture you unzipping your like REI 4-person tent and coming out as a Franciscan monk.
It was great.
It's beautiful.
It was a good time. But anyway, you mentioned Antiquity. So it's just a lot of that. It's a lot of eating turkey legs. They sell mead. Good stuff.
Jousting?
Yes, there was jousting as well.
Really? I gotta go.
Like pretend jousting.
I gotta watch A Knight's Tale and then go to the
Knight's Tale's so good.
It's
such a good movie.
Anyway,
we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Antiquity. Days of yore in F1 on this day, October 16th, the European Grand Prix at Jerez, which has just come up again. Mm-hmm. On this day in 1994, saw a final F1 appearance of Andrea de Ceres, nicknamed Andrea de Crasheris. For his frequent misadventures, the Italian driver holds some of the most unwanted records in the sport. With 208 Grand Prix under his belt, he has the most races without a win, and the record for the most successful non-finishes with 18 across 1985 and 1986.
Wait, say that again?
That is successive non-finishes.
Successive non-finishes.
Yes.
18
in a row. The streak. That's a streak the Undertaker would be proud of.
And that's, I mean, cars weren't as reliable back then, but it was still the 90s.
It was the late 80s, and there were like 10 races a year. So it's like this guy just wanted to go home. Pastor Maldonado of his time. In the 1987 season, he only managed to finish 2 out of 16 races. Okay, so 16. Okay, I'll take it back. Also a record, 2 out of 16. Indeed, he also holds the record for DNFs, 135 in his career, meaning he only finished 73 of his 208 races.
I can't believe it's less than half.
That's unbelievable.
Wow.
Danny Kvyat must look at that and go, how the fuck did I lose my seat? Like, what is that about?
That's true. Was he bankrolling it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Gonna look him up.
Unbelievable. Italian driver, surely not. Unbelievable. Fernando Alonso has an altogether better F1 record, and it got even better at the Chinese Grand Prix today in 2005 when he led home Giancarlo Fisichella in a Renault 1-2 to win the first ever Constructors' Championship for the French marque. Oh, those halcyon days for Renault.
Oh, yeah.
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 I can't believe he finished 73 of 208. What is that
thanks
like?
Largely to a personal Marlboro sponsorship, which also happened to be McLaren's main sponsor. De Cesaris landed a seat at McLaren, which had merged with the Project 4 Formula 2 team run by Ron Dennis after the 1980s season.
Yeah, that's a back of
During
money.
the season, De Cesaris proves to be fast on occasion, particularly at fast circuits, but he crashed 19 times that season, either in practice or in the race.
I was about to say,
due to driver error.
There was only 16 races, as previously mentioned. So he's a habitual, repeat offender. Put him away.
Wow. All right. Well,
locked her away the key. That's mad. I'd often heard his name, but I never knew the guy, and now I feel like I know the guy. What a guy!
Yeah.
It's a remarkable record because he got to 208. Like he was undeniable.
races. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had 2 back-to-back seasons, 9th place in the championship.
Wow. What? What years?
91, 92.
Okay, so we figured it out. You gotta break some eggs sometimes, make an omelet.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, thank you for that. All right. Well, Danny, final thoughts as we head into the COTA round.
Very impressed.
Back on American soil.
Very impressed we got this podcast over an hour. I was really doubting we could pull it off for much of this. But yeah, I feel like Race Around the World helped. The emails helped. I miss our good friend Rob. I look forward to chatting to him about this next week. And yeah, it's just very weird to have this break in the season. And I think because I was traveling as well, for me, it feels like this 6-week break happened. But yeah, COTA always feels like the beginning of the end of the season. So I'm excited to see what happens. I think unless something crazy happens on the McLaren side, I think Red Bull have lost the Constructors' Championship already. You could argue Ferrari are maybe breathing down their neck as well if their car performance continues and Red Bull's continues to stall. As for the Drivers' Championship, what you basically have to look out for the next 6 races is who doesn't finish. I think we've been talking about this as a lot of, if Verstappen comes second, if Lando comes first, this is probably going to be decided by by somebody like Verstappen recently coming 6th or 8th or something like that, or Norris not getting a win when he needs to do it. But if somebody is out of the top 10, I think that's going to be very, very interesting. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I guess if it happens early, that'd be a bummer. If Lando crashed out in this race, then that's probably murder she wrote. But yeah, the longer it goes on, the more fun this season will be.
All right. Well, if you, the listener, would like to support the show and get access to all of our bonus episodes, the ad-free version of the podcast, and the official Shift F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Have a great race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next week.